Okay, so we're going to mark some mortise and tenons. Once you've milled your timber up to be the appropriate size, you need to get your tools. So you need a rule, a square, a marking gauge, and a pencil. And the first thing we're going to do is work out how big our shoulders are going to be around the mortises. So this one's going to be 10 millimeters. So we're going to set our marking gauge at 10 millimeters. So to do that, you need to get a rule and your marking gauge. Set the thumb screw on the side so it's not super loose, just like it's a little bit tight, but you can still kind of move it if you push it hard. You want to set the rule so that it's on the base or the stock of the marking gauge. Set it close to the correct dimension and then tighten the thumb screw. If this dimension is too big, you need to hit the bottom of it like I just did, and if this number is too small, you need to knock it on the top. Once it's set and you're happy with where the tip is, like the tip distance is, don't set it at the base of the spike, you can tighten it fully. When I go to actually start marking, I'm going to hold it between my thumb and forefinger. I'll pinch the body of the marking gauge. I'll set it on the edge of my board and I'll make sure there's no gaps in here. I'll then do a little practice slide. Then all I have to do is rotate the marking gauge until the tip hits the wood, and then I'll do a couple of gentle passes. It's better to do a few light passes than big heavy ones because it's less likely to follow the grain of the timber. I'll do this around all four sides. And if you like, you can mark these out with a pencil just so you can see the lines a little bit more easily, but it's not necessary. To mark the depth of the shoulder for the tenon, I'm going to mark a distance, in this case it's 50 millimeters, on one of the faces, and then making sure that my square is referencing off of either the face or the face edge and has no gaps between the workpiece and the body of the square. Squeezing those two components together and then align it with the mark and square align. And then you see I just almost made the mistake of not referencing off the face edge. And then we're just going to square align all the way around the part. So here's what a haunch tenon would look like for marking out. Okay, so for marking out a domino mortise, it can be really easy, but it is good to mark one out just so you know, again, where everything's kind of going to go. So on the edge, so this is the edge I'm going to cut my mortise into. This is going to be the haunched mortise. So I'm going to do a 20 millimeter haunch. So I'll get my rule, put the 0 on the end. I'm going to mark 20, and then I'm going to mark 60. So the overall width of the tenon will be 60 millimeters. Sorry, of the mortise will be 60 millimeters. The haunch will be 20. So my square, making sure I reference off my face edge. Sorry, my face. And I'll mark those 2 points. I can use my marking gauge, set at 10 millimeters just to mark my edges, just for one, so you get an idea of where it's actually going to sit. I wouldn't do this for all of them just because it's a waste of your time. Okay, so that's set at 10. Run that down there, and then I'll run it down the side as well. loading so you can see it. You don't have to do that, but just for the camera. Okay, so this part is going to be 50 millimeters deep, and this part is going to be 20 millimeters deep. So we've got different depths. Okay, so this is where our mortise is going, but it's not the reference marks we need for the domino cutter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it around. So I'm on this top edge, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, let's see for the math for this. So this is for a 10 millimeter bit. Every different size bit has different numbers, but this is for the 10 mil bit. So I'm going to come in. Actually, I can just measure off this one. I came in 8 for that first section. So we need a line at 8 millimeters. And it does have to be as precise as you can get it. So 1 at 8. I then need, so that will do my shoulder, my shouldered section. Then I need another one at, so if my final length is 60 and 20, they're my internal walls of my tent. So I'll mark them across just so it makes it a little bit easier to see. So that's roughly where the inside walls of my tenon are going to go. But this doesn't help me with the domino cutter. With the 10 mil bit, it's got an offset of, from the edge to the center, it's 13 millimeters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back 13 from the 60 line. Then I can just do, and it's best to work from this bottom edge always. So I'm going to go to 47 because that's 60 minus 13. So 47 is right there. And to get, I need to come 13 millimeters off this wall here. So 20 plus 13. So that one will be 33 right there. So with these two lines now, what I'm going to be able to do is cut my, use the domino cutter to cut both my edges. But it doesn't look right. Why doesn't that look right? Okay, so now as long as there is within 16 millimeters overlap of each other, which they are, I'm not going to need to do another pass down the middle to clear the chips. So I've got I need another line there. Got a few lines on here now. It can be a little bit confusing. So what I'm going to do in a second is, now normally I'd only mark the lines I'm dominoing, but I've got some extras. So I'm going to put a mark here, here, and here. That tells me these are the 3 lines that I'm going to be dominoing. And I think that's it. So in reality, as long as you know the numbers for each of the, where the walls need to be, you don't need to do any of this. You only need to mark this top edge because this is the reference surface and all the other settings get done on the domino cutter themselves. So for our next mortise, I'm going to come in similar dimensions but further from the edge. So I'm going to put my ruler at, mark at 140. Then we're going to mark at 200. This is just for the sides of our mortise. So it's going to be a 60 millimeter mortise. Just check that it is 60. Yes, it is. Okay, so again, I'm just marking where the edges of my mortise are, but I'm not going to cut on these lines. This is just for reference so that I make sure my mortise is in the right spot. So I know that's where I'm cutting. I need to come 13 millimeters off these lines because I've got a 10 mil bit. So I'm going to again use the end of the material rather than marking off these, just to remove any sort of accumulation error. So for the 200, I need to come this way. So that's 200 minus 13. So I'm going to go to 187. Mark that. And then for the other one, I have to do 140 plus 13. So I'm going to go to 153. Mark that. And because the distance between these two lines is, well, actually, no, it is. Oh, it's greater than 16 on either side. So it's greater than 32. I need to do a center line, another domino in the middle, just to remove the waste because it cuts round, it leaves little corners. So I'll just use the 0 center, get that roughly the same distance on each side, about 17, and I'll put another one there. So I've got my 3 marks, so I'll square them. I'll mark which ones I'm dominoing. And then last check is I'll go back and I'll just remeasure everything just to make sure it's all working. Okay, so I should have 13 from the edge, which I do, 13 from that edge, which I do, perfect. And then I've just got rough overlap in the middle there.